Yochi Dreazen is the managing editor of Foreign Policy magazine. He spent 4 years in Iraq and Afghanistan reporting on those wars. He's reported from about 30 other countries. He's one of the most respected military journalists in America. He's also Chicagoan, born and raised in West Rogers Park, now lives in Washington, D.C. with his wife and family. He's also the author of a new book entitled The Invisible Front. The book examines PTSD, other mental illness, and suicide in particular among members of the military. It's a scandal that really hasn't gotten enough attention. He has reported on the consequences that follow suicide, including the U.S. military's reaction. This book focuses on the Graham family, which had 2 sons in the military and lost them both. Pick up the story from there, Yochi.
Thanks, Mike. This was sort of a Norman Rockwell family. You had a father who was rising in the military, ultimately became a general, a mother who kept the family together as they moved around the world the way military families do. You had 3 children. Jeff was the oldest, most like his father, wanted to follow his father into the military, lead men into combat. Kevin, the middle son, who was sensitive and a little bit shy, and Melanie, their daughter. And they were so close they lived together in college. That's how close they were. Both Jeff and Kevin were about to enter the military. Jeff was about to go to Iraq. He was a year older. Kevin was about to be commissioned as an officer. And one day he didn't show up. They had a plan to play golf before Jeff left for Iraq. Kevin never came. So Jeff called his sister and said, check on Kevin. She knocked on his door and found him hanging from a ceiling fan. And this demolished the family. And while they were in this spiral, 9 months later, Jeff was in Iraq, leading his men on a combat patrol near Fallujah, a place I've spent a lot of time. At that point, one of the most dangerous places in Iraq. Saw something on a bridge that looked off to him, turned to tell the men, stay back. And just as he turned, it exploded. He died. All the men survived. He died a hero. Kevin's death was seen very, very differently.
Now, I want to return to the Graham story in just a moment, but the larger story here of suicide among those who are in active duty in the National Guard and then veterans, why is it increasing? Why? So, first of all, rattle off a couple of the shocking statistics. We are getting almost 1 a day among those in active uniform in the National Guard. But if you count the vets, we're getting, what, 22 a day?
We're getting 22 a day. And just to put it in kind of raw numbers.
This is suicide.
These are suicide. 3,000 American troops have killed themselves since 2001, which is more than died in Afghanistan, which is a good chunk, almost equal, 3/4 has died in Iraq. So think of Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. More soldiers have killed themselves than died there.
Why?
Some of it is repeated tours. These are men who go again and again and again. Some of it is that these men
The young man who
drink.
Grew up across the street from me, he did 4 or 5 tours.
And that takes a toll. Some of it is
Fortunately, he's healthy.
knock wood. I mean, some of these are men who came into the military with alcohol problems. They're finding that's actually the biggest cause, that these are men who weren't screened out perhaps when they should have been.
Now, that's what I've heard. I've heard that recruiters and the recruitment process is not screening these people out. I mean, it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the taxpayers to bring these people in who have enormous potential medical and mental problems, mental health issues.
That's right. And then you give people access to guns, which is the biggest issue. 90-something% of Americans who kill themselves in the military use handguns. We think of access to handguns in the civilian world, multiply that exponentially, and that's the access in the military world.
Well, let's get back to the Graham family, which you've talked about. One son dies a hero. One son kills himself while in uniform. And the military treated the family very differently in each instance, even though the patriarch was on his way to becoming a brigadier general and the commander of Fort Carson, Colorado. Tell us about that in a quick nutshell.
Sure. So when Mark Graham became commander of Fort Carson, it had one of the highest suicide rates in the military. So the suicide rate in the military was skyrocketing. Fort Carson was among the worst. He got there and said, I've lost a son to suicide. I know the cancer this is. I know the pain this causes. And he devoted his whole time there to suicide prevention. By the time he left, it had one of the lowest rates in the military. And
so what did he do?
Part of what he did was try to reduce the stigma. That's the single biggest problem right now in the military. People are afraid that if they say, I need help, they'll be seen as weak, they'll be kicked out. And his whole time at Fort Carson was to try to figure out ways of bringing that stigma, of erasing it, so people felt comfortable seeking help.
Are there specific things that can be done?
He tried to put in place a hotline you could call anonymously. He tried to put in place, and this has now been copied across the military, one doctor goes with a single brigade, about 3,000 soldiers, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, stays with them, treats them when they're back. So it's not two strangers talking. It's someone that a soldier knows and feels comfortable talking to.
We have just two quick minutes left. You've spent a substantial amount of time in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have this horrifying group, this ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them. They're rampaging across the country. They're enslaving women. They are beheading people and executing hundreds of people in a day. What are the prospects for dealing with this group, controlling them or destroying them the way we're doing it now?
So the president uses that term destroy, which is the wrong phrase. No military has ever destroyed a terror group. Not the Israelis, when the military group that they're fighting is next door. The best, I think, right now to hope for is containment, where they're not spreading further into Syria, they're not spreading further into Iraq. Gradually roll them back. But this idea that you're going to destroy them, it's not possible. It's just simply not doable.
How are we doing?
Right now, it does not look like we're doing well. They haven't taken further major cities, but there's an important city called Kobani, right on the Turkish border. We've been airdropping weapons, we've been carrying out airstrikes. The city might fall within days. And when that city falls, that will be a huge, huge loss.
Why do you think young people, we've had several of them here from the Chicago area, try to go over there? Why is that happening?
There are a lot of people who think Islam is under attack. The governments that are in that region are heretical because they're close to the United States, because they're seen as too secular. On the internet, you could find preachers in whatever language you speak who will tell you your obligation is to go. And if you're feeling that already and all you hear is again on Facebook, on Twitter, you're going to go.
Can you tell us in 15 seconds what we should be doing if the strategy right now is not working?
I hate to say it, but at some point we will need American ground troops.
How many?
That number's hard, but we're talking thousands.
Okay, well, I wish I could say thanks. Yochi Dreazen's book is The Invisible Front, Love and Loss in an Era of Endless War. And wow, endless it is. We will be back in 2 minutes. This is Fox 32 Sunday.